Billy Connolly, for more than 20 years you've been one of Britain's most admired and most popular comedians, and you're still out on the road. Does standing up in front of an audience come easy, or is it frightening still?
Well, it's both. It's very frightening, and gets more so as the years go by, the thought of doing it. But doing it, it doesn't get easy, but when you actually step out onto the stage, those fears and apprehensions disappear, and I think I enjoy it more now than I've ever done. The fear of doing it gets more, but the joy of doing it is also getting more, because I've reached a very odd stage where I'm very confident about who I am and who I have been and where I come from. So I can actually tell the truth now when I want to. I can actually stop a story, fantasy. I've invented lots of uncles and aunts and things that I talk about. I've just invented these people to say things. But sometimes I can stop in the middle and say, I must tell you a thing that happened when I was about 5, and I do, and it's not funny. I'll just tell them it and leave it with them, and launch it. And it's a lovely position to be in, where you've gone beyond being a comedian to something else. I'm not quite sure what it is, but they trust you. You can feel the trust, and I don't know if it's love or whatever. There's a bond comes between you and the audience. They've known you for a long time. They trust you. They know you're going to be good anyway, so they'll put up with a lot, you know. And where they put up with a lot, I'll put a lot on them. And I tell them things, and I warn them that I might be doing this, and it's a thing I really do enjoy. I really enjoy it.
Tell me something that happened to you when you were 5 that isn't funny.
Oh yeah, no, while I was saying that to you, I was trying to think of an example, and it's very difficult. If when we're talking here, if one comes flying in, I'll tell you. But it's just like things people have said and things I found odd, you know. And last night I was talking about to the audience. Where was it last night? I was in Yorkshire at the Batley. Do you remember when you did Batley? Well, I did that place last night, and I was talking about my child, about the way my father used to speak to me, and the way the people who brought me up would talk to me, and that you never understood. Like they would say, you know, all those expressions like, you'll smile on the other side of your face. And that one they use in Scotland, which has always made me laugh, I'll take my hand off your face. Like you would think if you were going to tell somebody you're going to slap them, you would say you put your hand on your face. They say, I'll take my hand off your face. You know, I was just in those realms. I love to talk to them. It's just a wee cultural thing, a wee Glaswegian thing.
You've always worked live. You prefer
Yes,
to work live.
that's what I like.
Why is that?
That's where I come from. That's the way I started as a folk singer, and before that I was a funny schoolboy, and I was a funny apprentice, you know, and I was a funny territorial army guy, and that's all of it is live, and I understand live. I understand being a welder in rotten circumstances with the rain coming down in the shipyard and everybody laughing and getting electric shocks from your equipment, and people find it very funny. Things that normal people would find horrendous, I found, and we all found, very funny in that sort of prison, barracks-like atmosphere of the shipyard when the gate was closed and it all became very weird. And I loved the humour in there. It was cruel and good, you know. And I always wondered,
Were there other people as funny as you?
oh, most of them were funnier than me. There was a guy there who should have been a professional. His name was Pig McCrindle, and everybody in the Clyde knows him, and the ones who don't know him pretend they know him.
What have you got that he hasn't got?
A banjo, I think. Yeah.
If it's frightening before you go on, what's the last half hour like?
On stage,
Before you go on?
before you go on, it's not very nice. It's riddled with self-doubt and anxiety, because I never do my homework. I've never written a thing in my life. I wrote the history of Scotland. I did it I did it to do with the London Symphony Orchestra, and it was great. I was asked to do 15 minutes, and it stretched up to about 3/4 of an hour. Just this ridiculous history of Scotland from the beginning of time to now, and missing out the Covenanters, which I've never understood, and stuff like that. But I get very apprehensive and scared and wonder what I'm doing there. You know, every time I do it, I say, oh God, why? Oh, why did I do this? But once the time comes to get off, I think your brain does it to you. It sort of levels you off and gets you, because when it doesn't happen, when you get confident, it's not, you don't feel it. I did it once in Liverpool. I remember when we were driving up, I thought, it's going to be good. It's always good. The Liverpool Empire, it's great for me. We're going to kill them. And I went on. I forgot you have to work, whether you're popular or not. And I got on, and it was dying about a third of the way through. I thought, my God, what am I going to do? And I had to shift gear and start working, and it worked, as it usually did. And it's been a real lesson to me. And I think that's what scares me. I think I'm haunted by that Liverpool Empire.
Do you ever lose
the thought of dying, you know? Yeah.
Do you ever lose your way in the act?
All the time, every day. I love losing my way. I love it. I love it in my life too. I love being lost. I love being lost in New York. I love being lost in Chicago or Inverness. I love going up wee lanes. I love being in Dubai in a wee back street watching somebody embroider. And I just love being lost all of my life. But in my act, I get lost all the time, and I try to move things around to see. If I'm talking about, for instance, parachuting, and the previous night it has led to welding or whatever, flying, then the next night I'll try and talk about this first and see what it leads to, because you can't get from that to parachuting that's gone backwards. So we'll see where it leads, and then I'll stick something in the middle and see how that affects the next thing. And it often comes up with something absolutely brand new, which is the way I operate. Because I told you, I don't write. I never write it down. I wrote...
Do you have a list of headings? Do you have
I have a list of...
10 subjects?
Yes, yeah. Just maybe 10,
Parachuting.
15. Yeah. It says parachute, alcohol, marijuana, army, you know, holiday, camera, things like that. And I look over. When I go for a drink, I look at the list, and 3 things come... Spectacles, things like that, because I'm getting older, I wear glasses and all that, you know, and it all gets jumbled up and comes out sometimes in a very odd order and creates something new. The only thing I wrote the history of Scotland down in headlines, but I did a thing many years ago that I couldn't do now if I was asked on bended knee. It's the crucifixion and the Last Supper. I did that, and then Glasgow University came in and asked, could I put it in the archive that they have, and I had to write it down. So I went and I got an album, and I listened and sort of dictated to myself, wrote it. That's the only thing I've ever written down.
Did you think that crucifixion sketch, or part of your story, part of your act, was that deliberately intended to shock?
No, I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
It was funny, but...
I've never shocked on purpose in my life.
Were you trying to say this is what Christ might have gone through if he'd been here today? In a serious way, or not?
I didn't think that for a second, but I always have believed that Christians tend to miss out on the humour of Christ, you know. They seem to be awful dreary to me when they're supposedly followers of a guy who was incredibly exciting. You know, when you look at his life, he was an exciting guy, and if you look at the company he chose to be with, he was a good laugh, I think, you know. And they don't see... It's always mystified me that they dress in black to represent such a bright guy.
Did that cause a great scandal at the time?
At the time. But the funniest thing was, I found that... this tends to irritate people when I say it, but it's the truth. I found that devout people or staunch people in Scotland, you're either devout or staunch. If you're a Catholic, you're devout. If you're a Protestant, you're staunch. For some reason, you're never a devout Protestant and a staunch Catholic. But people who actually took part in the religion and sincerely believed and lived it tended to either poo-poo it as nothing, like throwing meringues at a brick wall, which was the right attitude, or they said, God, that's a really interesting line you've taken there. And then they would go into the thing about Jesus having a sense of humour. That was the 2 lines they took. But people who gave lip service to religion, bigots, would attack me loud and long, and I was hit once by a Jesus freak. He punched me, and I think if I was him, I would have punched me too, you know. But he was wearing badges and all that about how much Jesus loves him, you know. And he had a swing at me. He was totally incensed by it. But funnily enough, I did find that people who were kind of staunch or devout and active in the religion, and so even some ministers, priests on the quiet would say they liked it. They didn't announce it. But ministers would come up in public and say, "My God, that was funny. Well done."
A lot of your stuff then, and still to some extent now, was rude. It was about bodily functions.
Yes.
It was about
Yes.
pissing and shitting and
Yes.
farting
Hemorrhoids.
and masturbating and hemorrhoids. Why is that so interesting?
I
Why is it
just
so funny?
loved it. I thought it's just it was the vulnerability of it, you know, of all these bits. When you get your trousers down, you're vulnerable. Sex, or the toilet, or hemorrhoids, or itching, and a busy street, itching there. Oh God, what am I going to do? The vulnerability, just made for humour. It's just mad, and nobody was doing it, and it became the crutch became my area, you know. And I tell you, I was so proud once. And I'll tell you where I was. I was in Wick, up at John O'Groats, and in the hotel. It was a kind of dreary night in the hotel, and a man came over with the wee half glasses and a tweedy suit, and he said, "My God, I admire your work. Would you write for me?" And I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he was a doctor, but his job, he was a specialist in those colostomy bag things, and he was going round the country lecturing these poor people who have to wear them on the latest developments on this kind of stuff. And he said, "And I've heard you doing the hemorrhoids." He said, "I didn't believe anybody could do 40 minutes in hemorrhoids." He said, "So could you do something on colostomy bags for me?" He said, "Because I'm really dreary." And I was so flattered, you know. So we sat down and we tried to think of funny things. And I'm sure I'm the guy who came up with the worst thing about a colostomy bag is finding shoes to match and stuff. You know, when I was trying to tell him the angle to come from.
The difference between you then and now to outward appearance is that the beard is gone and the hair's a bit coiffed now.
Well, you see, if you uncoif your hair, see that hair I had, it went on fire once. A guy, a singer-songwriter, a very famous fellow, pulled a big lump out of it when I was trying to punch him, and that was he did that, and then the following night somebody set fire to it at a party, and that's why it was that shape. You know, it became that organically became that wonderful thing, and I was immensely fond of it because it changed every day. Every day was a wee adventure. But then for a play or a film or something, I had to get it shaped up, and once it's in shape, you can't unshape it. It just won't do it. So it has become this thing. I took the beard off for a movie, and I was desperate to anyway. I'd had the beard for 26 years.
Did you take it off yourself?
Yes, I did. It's 26 years I had it.
Did you have to use a cut-thread razor to get it off?
No, I didn't. I did it with scissors. No, I did it with the sideburns trimmer of my razor first, and then a wee scissory bit, and then I shaved it. It was, oh God, I looked like a potato. Because I was kind of hoping I might be handsome. I had harboured this for 26 years. I thought, well, you know, I've got a second bite at this. Maybe underneath this, there's this handsome guy. You know, I'll whip this off and people go, gasp, look at him. Shaved potato. I couldn't believe it. I was really depressed. But once you've had it for a few days, you don't look so round anymore. You know, it kind of evens itself.
But do you feel different with it off?
No, you don't feel a thing. That's the thing. It's because when you've got a beard, you're the only one in the world who can't see it, right? So you don't feel the least bit different. But people's expressions towards you change. It's so odd. But they kind of admire it when you do something as big as that. People like it, but I think they like you to have a purpose. If you just whipped it off on a whim, they would say, "Oh, come on, I like the beard." But if you took it off as I did for a film, they say, "Oh, well, good on him. That was a brave move." You know.
Where were you born?
I was born in Anderston in Glasgow, down at the docks there, Dover Street, in the next close to Alex Campbell, the folk singer, and the same street as Roddy McMillan, the actor.
Who was your father?
Billy, he's the same name as me, Billy Connolly. He was born in Partick in Glasgow, the son of an Irish immigrant, Jack, and he served his apprenticeship as an optical instrument maker at Baron Stroud's, making rangefinders for the army and binoculars and all that. And then he went into the Air Force in India. While he was doing that, my mother and he split. And my mother went off with another guy called Adams, and they went and lived in Dunoon and raised another family. My father and his two sisters brought me up.
Was it a shock when your mother went?
No. That was very odd, but not a shock. It was very strange and very exciting, I thought, at the time. My sister was more shocked by it because I think she knew more about it, because I was only 4, and she was always my guardian, my sister, and she kind of looked after me. I thought the whole thing was rather exciting. I remember at the time.
Were you well brought up by your aunts?
No, I didn't enjoy it at all. It was awful because my aunts began to regret it. They were both single and in their 20s, I guess, then. One of them was just out of the Wrens, from Portsmouth there, and the other one was a career nurse. And I think they deeply regretted it, especially the older one who took the real mother place in my life, Mona. She deeply regretted doing it because it kind of cost her marriage and happiness and stuff. And she kind of took it out on me. I don't blame the women. It was just the whole thing was uncomfortable and awful and dreadful. I didn't like my childhood at all.
You were a Catholic? Was that an important thing in your childhood?
It was very important in my childhood, indeed. I liked it. I liked Catholicism and religion and stuff like that. I really did when I was a kid. I still like hymns. I like how they feel. I like on Radio 4, New every morning and all those things. I hope that's still on, but I don't like modern hymns. I like traditional hymns.
Are you a practicing Catholic?
Certainly. No, no.
A believing Catholic?
No, I'm not even a Christian anymore.
Did you like school?
I hated school.
Why did you hate school?
I really don't have a good answer. I loved it in the beginning, and I was very, very good when I was an infant. I was taken round the school to show me off to how I could write when I was only 5, and I was writing on the blackboard. And we got to my sister's class, and she stood up and read to everyone, and we were quite celebrated, in St. Peter's Girls' School. You went to the girls' school till you were 7, you see. And then I went to the boys' school, and I had a maniac of a teacher, a psychopath. God, I'd love to kick her ass if I met her today. Her name was MacDonald, Big Rosie MacDonald, who made my life an absolute misery. And a lot of others. I mean, she used to call people with glasses 4 eyes. She was a teacher, right? And I didn't like. I fell away. I fell away badly, and then I failed the 11 plus. But I was only 11, so they let me do it again, and I passed by some miracle. And I got to St. Gerard's in Govan, because I got a senior pass. I didn't only pass, I got lofted right beyond the junior into the green blazer job. Govan, went to school in Govan, a place I dearly love now to this day. I was there, I started good again. I was 10th in the first year. Now, this was the creme de la creme of the working class boys. Well, no. The ones with a few bob would go to St. Mungo's and St. Aloysius. But my sister was already going to Notre Dame, and they couldn't stretch. Not that they wanted to, but I was at St. Gerard's. And with my green blazer and all, and I was 10th in the first year out of 35 boys. Not bad at all. And then, whoosh, down the Swanee. And at my own fault, I was always looking at, I know more about the sex life of pigeons than I know about irregular verbs. I could just watch the pigeons all day. And the space between the buildings, out of the bungalows, these buildings that were supposed to be temporary, which became permanent. Between the buildings, you could see the shipyards, and you could hear them all day. You could hear the caulkers working.
Is that where you went to
That's
work?
where in those, it was such a gas, it was full employment. The school's emptied and the gates of the shipyard open, and we just poured in. What trade would you like? Certainly, son, there you go. So when I left school, I had 2 engineering certificates, a J1 and J2. There was an engineering course, and I did rather well. But next salutary lesson, I want to be a marine engineer, because my life's ambition is to get the hell out of there, to get on a ship and go. I want to go to Shanghai. I want to go to Valparaiso. I want to go to Baltimore for some reason. Because I would go to school on the Renfrew ferry across the Govan ferry, across the Clyde, and all the boats seemed to be registered in Baltimore. And I thought, That's where I'll go to Baltimore. But I go to be an engineer, got to Stevens shipyard. There's a guy sitting next to me, and he's got a blazer with a Boys Brigade badge on it. I thought, oh, I'm doomed. This is it. He'll get it. And he did. And he's talking, he's a plummy voice. This guy doesn't know a spanner from an Alsatian dog. He gets the gig, and I'm a welder. The best thing that ever happened to me, you know, because that's where I belonged. All those guys, the Black Squad, we were called.
What's left of the Glasgow of your childhood?
Not a lot. Not a lot. It's physically changed, and I miss it terribly. I think I miss Glasgow, but what I miss is my youth, I think, really. But when I think of Glasgow, the Glasgow that I really liked, Drury Street and the Horseshoe Bar, the cobbles, you know, or the Barrowland Bar and drinking Lanley, or the Oxford Tavern, and all those places with those old drunk women and laughing, and it's always raining, and it's always cobbles, and I'm walking, I've got a white shorty raincoat and I'm going dancing, or I'm in the Surrey Head, and we're drinking Scrumpy with Hughie Gilchrist, he was the funniest man on the planet, an apprentice welder, and he had a drinking coat. It was a Pack-a-Mac. So we all wore suits, you know, Irish tweed and striped Italian gear, and he'd button his Pack-a-Mac up to the neck, and because Angus, who was the barman, would lift pints of Scrumpy over people's heads. It would rain cider on you.
You said you wanted to get the hell out of there, and you did get the hell out of there.
I did, yeah.
You've got a home in Los Angeles. Is that home?
Home is where the mortgage is. I don't care about home anymore. I'm a gypsy. I have been for many, many years, for 25 years. When I was married the first time, I remember once my wife complaining that we had 13 addresses in 10 years. Well, I don't know how many addresses I've had now, many, many more. I love my life. I love the way it changes texture all the time. And I like Los Angeles because it has no root. It isn't a place, really. It doesn't even have a centre. It's nothing. It's what you make it, or it's nothing at all. And it depends entirely on who you're with, the kind of time you're going to have.
When you go back to Glasgow, do you see your old friends?
I do, yeah, I see quite a few.
Now, how long do you spend with them?
Oh, quite a lot. I've got fishing pals, and I have welder pals. I don't have many pals from school. I must tell you this, that really distresses me. I went with a television programme to my school, St Peter's, and they went through the records, and I'm not there. So we went to St Gerard's in Govan, and they went through the records, and I'm not there again. They've taken me out the thing. Like I'm a non-person. You know what? I think that's it.
I read somewhere that you said that you could only spend 15 minutes with your old friends because after that you failed to recognise each other.
No, you can spend a great deal longer than that, but you mustn't go to a pub. You mustn't do it in a bar, because it begins to become money, you know. Because anytime they write about me in Scotland, they say millionaire Billy Connolly or some money illusion. And it separates you, makes you further and further from your old pals until the most awful thing happens. If a guy's got a couple of pints in him and he's looking at you and you are this rich guy, he begins to feel like maybe he's a failure. It's totally wrong, but they think maybe there's an underachiever. And there's no such thing in my book, because the highest achiever, and this sounds really pretentious, I know it's going to sound awful, but there was an old jock, the street sweeper in Drimmen. This lovely, he lived in the same street as me in Drimmen. He was the most complete person I ever met, and I used to laugh. I would drive down the street and there'd be some American tourist had made the mistake of asking Jock for directions, and he would be saying poems about the salmon, and he pronounced that Scottish country with salmon as if it's got a U in it. And he had written poems about salmon, and he'd be looking at a snail in the street and attracting people's attention to it. The most complete guy I ever met. So it's got nothing to do with money, you know. It's doing what you think you should be doing, I think.
Did you say earlier that you knew you were an entertainer from the word go, for just cracking jokes in the shipyard?
I felt it really
Not
quick.
Singing, being a comedian.
Being funny.
Being funny.
Yeah, being funny. But you see, and I was at school, I loved being funny. I loved cracking my friends up. in the class or out of the class. When I was an apprentice, I loved cracking them up because they were funny people, you know. And if they would allow me in with some tuppence worth. But I didn't know how to become a comedian. I told my father I wanted to be one, and I told the science teacher, a guy called Bill Sheridan, that I wanted to be a comedian. And he made fun of me, but he came up on the quiet later and said, "That's great, what are you going to do, you know?" And he would talk about Tommy Morgan and all that.
And how quickly, I mean, there's comedians and different styles of comedy. How quickly did you settle on the long sort of wandering monologue?
Oh, that took years and years, because I became a folk singer first. I read in the paper I was a comedian. Really. It's a comedian, but I thought, my God, I've cracked it. I thought I was a funny folk singer because I was too hairy for cabaret and far too scruffy and wild for variety theatre. They couldn't send me on with Jimmy Logan, you know. You'd frighten people. It was full of old women in wet raincoats. I mean, they would cry if I came marching on. The guy who was really good to me was Jimmy Shand. I did some gigs with him. He said, "My God, you're going to make it big, son. You better prepare yourself." Because he saw in Stranraer. He said, "You're going to do it. You better get ready."
Is there something macho about the longer you can go on if you're up there in front of an audience? Do you want to break the record, to just be there longer than anybody else has ever been there, making them laugh?
No. But what do you mean, the length of the career or the length of the act?
The length of the act.
The length of the hours,
Yeah.
yeah. No, mine has become... I was speaking to Mike Harding about this, because he's another one who can't get off. It's the shape of the material that states how long you should be up there. Mine, I don't do one-liners. Unless I hear an awful funny one, I'll sling it in somewhere. But they're rarely mine. They usually belong to someone else. But my material is it's become so lumpy and strange. And there's a sort of, it pretends to be a story with a beginning, a middle and an end, but it hasn't. It's an illusion. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's this camouflage, this big thing that looks like a story. It's a jumble of ad-libs and fantasies, all living, tenuously linked to one another. But it's become it takes a long time to tell.
Are the things that make us laugh what you find funny?
Yes. Well, I'm very lucky now because I have found my audience. This is a thing the press can't live with. Because they don't know about things like this. Although they indeed have found their audience and they tell them how awful I am, but they're telling the wrong people. They don't come and see me. You know, they miss the boat with monotonous regularity. I have found my audience, and they like me and I like them, and that's about the beginning, the middle, and end.
Was there a point where you'd found that audience and radio and television were still frightened of you?
Yes, I think it's still with us. They're still very apprehensive about me, because I might rear up at them. You know, I might swear in the middle of it all, and I just bloody might too. You know, they're absolutely right.
I can still remember watching you on a Parkinson show, where you told a story about somebody getting buried in the backyard.
Oh, that made me famous. And the bum sticking out the ground and the parking the bicycle. A man told me that in Valencia in Spain. I went to see Scotland play in Spain. The last game Charlie Cook ever played. Me and Frankie Miller. Was Peter McDougall there? I'm sure, was Peter with us? But Frankie was anyway. And we were a bit drunk and got to the game and we were, yes. We'd been drinking that brandy. It's a number, 7-Eleven or 362.
Sieni Tres.
Oh, right. So we're giving it that. And we were all in very good form. And a man ran over and told me the joke, and ran, a Scottish guy, and ran back over to his pals. And I was leaning against a wall, roaring with laughter. And driving into this building, I was with my manager, Frank Lynch, and I said, I think I'll tell Parkinson that bum joke, the bicycle and the bum. He said, for God's sake, don't. This is the biggest chance you've ever had. Don't blow it. If you tell that, you're finished. Let me tell you right now, boy, you'll never get a break like this. I've just managed, because he was so proud, he had held off. Who's that guy for Yorkshire? He's dead now, the talk show guy. Do you remember him? It was a Yorkshire talk show host who died, but he was kind of competing with Parky, and he didn't want me on it. He wanted me on the big one, you know. And he was saying to me, "Now look, you could have been on this other guy. I've got Parkinson. Don't let me down." And I went for it because I knew instinctively I should.
Did the BBC appreciate it when you did?
Oh, well, Parky did. And that was the beginning, the middle and the end, as far as that went. Because how could they disapprove when everybody's howling with laughter? That's the proof of the pudding. That's where television falls down. Because you can actually be a comedian and nobody's laughing. You can actually do that. Now, can you imagine you being a football player and you can't dribble? Or you can't pass a ball?
Well, there's quite a few of them around.
Yeah, well, there's no shortage. But you know, but live is the answer. The laugh is everything.
Was it difficult to break through to English audiences, or not to put to find a point on it, on audiences that found your accent difficult?
Never once. I've never had a problem, ever. Because as I said, I was a folk singer, and all the great clubs were here in England. All down, right, not much Wales, but right down to Cornwall, through the north, the Midlands. I used to love the Midlands, you know, Solihull and Walsall. Then it would be all Bolton, Blackburn, Oswald, Twistle. And in the west of Scotland, there was very little. You couldn't charge to get into a lounge bar, you see, so that held them back. East of Scotland, Fife, yeah, certainly. Aberdeenshire, brilliant. So I was well used to England, and I'd always kind of thought English because I'd been reading P.G. Wodehouse since I was a little boy. I'd become a kind of Anglophile. I liked England. You know, all my life I'd been reading comics. It was all public school. It was Billy Bunter and all those guys and Lord Snooty. It was all about England. England was I was no stranger to the place. And Biggles, you know, and the famous Five. So I was no, but P.G. Wodehouse, more than anybody, had given me a love of this England that didn't actually exist. It only exists in individuals. And I keep meeting them, you know, like John Mortimer. I mean, I think P.G. Wodehouse wrote him. He doesn't actually
You don't
exist.
think he's Billy Bunter? Does your best audience think of you as one of them?
Yes, I definitely think so. And I can tell sometimes, but a wonderful thing happened. It happens from time to time. And it just takes your breath away, where someone in the audience talks to you. Like there's thousands of them, and somebody says, hey, Billy, a woman did it to me in Glasgow once. Billy, and I thought, yes. And I couldn't see her. I mean, the place, there's 3,000 people in the building. Billy, what? And I said, what is it? Do you think, remember that song you did about being shabbily dressed and your mother made you clothes? And I said, yeah. Do you think you could sing it? I said, sure. and now, what I really love is that she felt okay about that woman. She thought that was, she felt comfortable with that. And I'm really glad that I did that to her. It was inadvertent, I didn't think of it.
You once said that your humour is close to the streets.
Yeah.
What happens if you live away from the streets, if you move away from the streets?
It's like that song from Chess. The borders of my country are built around my heart. It's got nothing to do with being on the street. As a matter of fact, the further away you get, the clearer it becomes. You know, your memories of the street. I don't think I'm kind of international street now, but I'm not Glasgow street anymore. Some people claim that this is Glasgow humour. I doubt if there is such a thing as Glasgow humour. I think there's funny and there's not funny. And because I've got such a thick Glasgow accent, it's often written down as Glasgow humour, and I'm quite happy about that. But like the other day, I was asked to define Scottishness on the radio, and I refused to do it because I have no idea what it might be. I haven't a clue. And immediately some dumpling in a Glasgow paper has written, it simply means being the best. Oh yeah? Did we qualify for the World Cup, by the way? You know, so you have to, I think it's your duty to strike out and get away from nationalism and patriotism and all that other junk and be funny, full stop. Don't be Glasgow funny, Scottish funny, be funny. Be it in your own accent, but change the rhythm to suit the whole world.
Do you like Britain?
I love it. Oh, it's a brilliant place. I do. I love the fact that it doesn't actually, it doesn't work really. It's a big practical joke really. I love the countryside. I love the fishing. I hate the class system, and it clogs everything up. And it's funny and interesting.
You have homes here.
I do, yeah.
Will you
Not
come-
homes. Well, I suppose I do, yeah.
A home?
I have a house. I have one in Scotland, but that's for my daughter. Really, she's at university, so she's got a house.
Will you come back to live here?
I don't know. I kind of think I'll probably, in my old age, I think I'd like to live in Australia. I think I'd like to live in a warm place that's funny and jolly and happy and optimistic. And I think Australia is that.
Have you got any unattained ambitions? Is there things you
Yes.
still want to do?
I would like to write a novel. I'd like to write my autobiography properly. I'd like to write some more plays, but my brain doesn't work that way yet. I seem to have trouble concentrating for long periods of time. I just say to hell and go and fishing. So I'd like to, when I get more mature, I think I'm a bit of a. I've remained because I've been on the road all this time and I've been spoiled for so long. I think I'm very immature and it affects everything I do. And I think my thinking process has become very immature. And I'll have to grow up a bit and sit down and work. Like Stephen Fry, like to be able to work like that would be a joy.
Are you a good father?
I think I'm okay. I'm getting better. I think I was lousy. I think I was a drunk absentee, and I think I'm getting better. I know I'm getting better, but I only wish, because unfortunately when Jamie and Cara came along, I was hell bent on the career and the hippie thing and drinking and being absent and being a nutcase, and I don't think I'm settling down, but a lot of things have fallen into place which have allowed me in my immaturity to become a better father. I think I'm getting better at it.
What would you hope for your children?
I would hope that I would love to think they find what they should be doing. There's a lovely saying in Buddhism, I have to paraphrase it, about you should find what you should be doing and do it, is the be all and end all, you see. And I hope they find, I hope they have the confidence to do what they really think they should be doing, whether it's putting up telephone lines or ballet dancing or making kilts in Inverness. I hope they find it, and they look as if they might. They keep coming up with pretty good lines.